addiction, mental health, drinking on St. Patrick's Day. Today live.
I am redeemed. You set me free. So I'll shake off these heavy chains and wipe away every stain. Now I'm not who I used to be. I am redeemed.
All right, 3 minutes after the hour here on this 17th day of March in 2014. This is Recovery Monday, brought to you by Powell CDC. We do this every Monday. And, of course, my co-host Lila Stafford is in the house. Bob Montserrat, the cat in the hat, not here today. He's testifying in a case somewhere. I don't know where. I think it's here locally. So we will not be... Well, are you going to monitor the chat, Ryan? Do you usually have that up? Okay, Ryan will have the chat on. So if you want to make comments there. And our special guest today is Kevin Carroll, and he is the Executive Director of Behavioral Health at Unity Point. Well, is it all Unity Point? Okay.
Des Moines. Yep. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Nice to have you here. Appreciate you being here. And this, of course, what a coinkydink that we're having Recovery Monday on St. Patrick's Day. And just for a second, Ryan wanted to show you how into St. Patrick's Day that we are. We have green all the way around us. So we just wanted you to know that we're celebrating soberly St. Patrick's Day with our green. Now, I don't have any St. Patrick's Day stories because St. Patrick's Day was amateur night. I wasn't going to be out there on the streets with all the drunks and winos and the amateurs getting drunk, so I never went out. Do you have any St. Patrick's Day stories, Lila?
My last one was pretty bad.
Was?
And I just,
28 years ago.
28 years
28
ago.
years ago.
But I remember always wanting to have fun. And it's sort of like a New Year's Eve thing. It was never really fun, but it was built up that it was supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
So I just kept drinking and drinking, thinking, well, it's got to be fun. It's got to get fun. And then pretty soon it was, I was in bad shape. And
yeah, it was a disaster.
Yeah.
But it is amazing how many people take the day off, take tomorrow off.
I was just thinking that downtown, I'm seeing these people. I'm thinking, why aren't you at work?
Well, we had the parade was downtown.
I know.
We have this program is being broadcast live on a local radio station, KTIA, but it's also webcast. And if you're watching this somewhere else, we're in Des Moines, Iowa. And I don't know what other cities do. I just know that Des Moines, for as long as I've been here, celebrates St. Patrick's Day.
Well, I had a friend from Salt Lake City today. I talked to this morning, and she said, why is there a parade today? Most of them did it over the weekend, which I didn't realize. I thought everyone did it on the day.
We always do.
Yeah.
So.
And my wife and daughter were in Chicago over the weekend, and they went to the parade there and saw the river dyed green.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they had a great time.
That's cool that they do that. What I love about St. Patrick's Day is I love corned beef and cabbage. So I ate it Saturday, and then I had leftovers yesterday, and then I ate it today.
Oh, it makes me sick thinking about it.
What don't you like?
None of it.
Oh, really? The corned beef or cabbage?
No. Oh, it's nasty.
Well, see, my wife won't let me cook corned beef and cabbage at home because of the smell.
Yeah.
So I have to wait and get it when it's out. And, of course, nobody ever has that on their menu, so you get it once a year.
I don't like Irish food. When I was in Ireland, my girlfriend and I stayed with a friend of mine who was Irish, and his mother was cooking us this Irish food. And I would hand her the food under the table because I didn't want to be disrespectful to his mother, but it was nasty.
Well, you know the key to Irish stew is?
What?
Whiskey.
Oh, yeah.
You can take any vegetable beef soup, basically. Get a little get a little gravy going, not a broth, and you add whiskey, and it's Irish soup or Irish stew, whatever you want to call it. So, all right. So, Kevin, you do a great job for Unity Point, and we appreciate that. You're kind of the guy that makes sure that the counselors and everybody are fully trained, and they help people, and they know how to help people. Where does your passion come from for this? Because as we were speaking earlier, you don't have anything in you or your family's background that would lead to addiction or something like that. So where does this passion come from?
Yeah, my story is probably a little bit non-traditional in that way. I grew up here in Des Moines, a graduate of Valley High School, and then went on a sort of series of educational adventures, both here in Iowa and then in Maryland and New Hampshire, and then moved back to town about 10 years ago. And as I was preparing and working for Orchard Place, a children's agency here in town, I was working toward my licensure as a marriage and family therapist and learned that I could also become certified as an alcohol and drug counselor. And like you alluded to, didn't have any sort of personal history with that, but just obviously through life experience know that lots of people did. And so unlike many of the substance abuse counselors in the state, I was a little bit of the oddball of having maybe an intellectual interest more than a personal interest and just wanting to help people along that path. Then after being licensed and seeing kids initially and teenagers focused on recovery and sort of keeping them out of trouble and juvenile court involvement, really just sort of, it doesn't take long to meet with people and talk and listen to realize what a great difference you can make in people's lives through counseling, whether it's specifically about substance abuse issues or mental health issues as well, or their family.
Well, it's life-changing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, what you guys do, and I know you know this, but I think every once in a while it's good that you hear this from the outside. You change lives. People come to you broken, busted, families that are being torn apart, that probably have no hope, marriages that have been destroyed through lies and deception. And you guys have the tools to teach us the tools to try to mend those fences and amend, those hurts and habits and things that we do so badly to the people we love.
I have the great opportunity to read all of the patient or client satisfaction surveys that they fill out after completing services at Powell. And you wouldn't believe the number of times, literally, those words are written down, scratched in pen and pencil of, "You saved my life. Yep. My life has been turned around. Thank you so much. I love you." And just the outpouring of support that people give to the staff and to the program, because it has made such a tremendous difference.
Now, Kevin Carroll is our guest. He's the Executive Director of Behavioral Health at Unity Point and Powell CDC. You mentioned for a little bit that you used to work with children. Do those children who acquire addiction issues most usually come from addicted parents?
That's a great question, and one that I think both clinicians and researchers have been trying to figure out for years. But I would say that in most cases, you could point to culture as being a significant part of that. And by that, I mean, who are the kids and teens running with? Who are their friends?
More than the household?
Well, I was going to say that, and the other, what's happening at home, both in terms of what are they seeing role modeled by their, loved ones, whether it's their parents directly, grandparents, or aunt and uncles, or even neighbors and close friends that sort of feel like family. Those are the groups that influence youth, both positively and unfortunately negatively when it comes to substance abuse.
Yeah, we had there was a funeral today from a family who buried their 33-year-old dad and son from this disease. And, the slideshow with the little kids. And you look over and you realize that kid's only 2 or 3 years older now, And they may never, ever touch alcohol or drugs or anything, but don't tell me that their entire life has not been impacted by drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
I also think that older sisters and brothers have a big influence on children, huge influence, because they're a little closer in age.
And they want to be like their big brother or big sister.
Yeah.
Now, you have a sister.
Oh, there are 5 of us.
Okay. Where are you in the line of age?
I'm the baby.
You're the baby. So
I was influenced by all of them.
Yeah, I was going to say, were you influenced by them?
Yeah.
Okay. Were they all people who like to party?
Absolutely. They still do.
They still do. Are you the only one that's...
Yeah.
Well, and I can give...
Wow. I'd love to go into that, but I don't want to put you in a difficult position with your siblings.
Well, my brother similar story. You know, he hasn't developed any long-term problems, but certainly in high school and college, he did his fair share of, binge drinking or testing the limits. And for whatever reason, seeing how he behaved and how my mother largely reacted to that behavior, I was able to realize and say to myself, Kevin, that's not the choice you want to make. Learn from your brother. Don't make the same dumb mistakes yourself.
And your mother's telling you this? Or
No,
you're telling yourself
telling
this?
myself this.
But where, okay, that's awesome. But where does that come from? Because most usually the younger sibling does not sit back and say, I don't want to be like Big Brother. They say, oh, I want to be just like Big Brother.
He's emotionally stable. That's where it's coming from.
And, after you see your older brother maybe throw up in the bathroom or get reamed out or grounded, those were the parts that I saw, the negatives, and thought, I don't want that to be, I don't want to be sick on a Saturday night and have my mom disappointed with me.
Yeah.
Now, it's not to say I didn't make any poor choices growing up either, but largely avoided large mistakes.
But you learned from consequences. You saw the consequences of other people's actions, and you learned.
Life's too short to have to live all those experiences yourself and not learn from others.
Now, you also deal with mental health, which fascinates me, and we're going to be going to a break in a minute, and we'll go into that further. But do you believe your ability, and if you don't want to make it about you, make it about somebody else, but take two siblings. One's older, one's younger. The older one is running hard and fast and getting in trouble, and you're watching it. Do you think there's something in your mental capacity that helps you understand the consequences? I mean, actually follow the stepping stones to say, oh, if I do this and this and this, oh my gosh, this is what's going to happen. Is that the way the brain is made?
Boy, I wish I could answer that question for you. There's enough, and people have enough experience in their own families to know that some adolescents and teens and young adults kind of pick up on those life lessons quickly, and others, unfortunately, have repeated stumbles, whether it's about substance abuse or choices with their sexual health or academics and homework. Some people just takes longer to develop those skills and maturity.
Yeah, because if someone told me, don't touch that stove, it's too hot, I will go over and go,
touch it.
How hot is it?
Yeah.
Or I saw my sisters and brothers get into some trouble, and it was like, and I saw the consequences of it, but my brain's going, I wonder what they did before. Now I saw what the consequences were, but it must have been worth it for them to do it. So it's like, I want to know what that party was like.
What?
Well, in
I
addition
want
to
to ask you a question about your family, but I shouldn't, should I?
I don't care.
You don't care? Okay, go ahead.
I was just say, in addition to the sort of role modeling, for better or worse, is the access to substances. So if you have older siblings, maybe they've got an ID that someone uses, or they're willing, for whatever reason, to buy cigarettes or to get access to alcohol in ways that if you're the oldest child, you don't kind of have that opportunity, so to speak.
Yeah. And sometimes Big Brother and Big Sister are not cool. I hate this word because it's a liberal talking point, but they're bullied by their older siblings. And the last thing they want to do is be like them. And if they see that activity come from cigarettes or drinking or the people they're hanging around with, I'm probably not going to follow in Big Brother or Big Sister's footsteps.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Kevin Carroll is our guest. He's the Executive Director of Behavioral Health at Powell CDC. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little more about mental health and the impact that has on people with addictions. And I'll share a little bit of my own story because it's directly related to mental health. But the thing that we try to do here on Mondays is try to let you know there is someone, someplace here locally that's safe. We're probably not talking about you. We're probably preaching to the choir here. But it's your husband, it's your wife, it's your son or daughter, it's your sibling, it's your pastor, it's someone in your book club or the neighborhood that you have concerns over. You can call Powell and talk to them about those things. Those counselors will listen to you, and they will help you understand some of the things you can do and some of the things you probably shouldn't do. It's Powell CDC in the white pages. Make sure you reach out to them if you've got somebody you love in trouble with life's hurts habits, and hangups. We're coming back live here on Recovery Monday from Powell CDC.
A father who is headed toward another heart attack. A woman who struggles daily with diabetes and her memory. A boy whose headaches keep him out of school. A mother who one morning discovers a lump. A girl whose condition defies diagnosis. You come to us because you need answers, but you also need more. You need understanding of what you're going through. You need comfort. You need to be treated as an individual, not a condition. You need to be included in your own care. You are the point of everything we do. That's why we're changing to Unity Point Health. It's a model of care that will help us work better together, where the physician who knows you best takes the lead, coordinating your care through every step, from the hospital to specialists to rehabilitation to health services in the home and in the community, to making sure the treatments are effective. By working as a team, we surround you with care, helping you manage your health and your conditions, guiding you to making better choices and living a healthier life. The point of Unity is you. Unity Point Health.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places, especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart. And it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. Minutes after the hour, we're back on this St. Patrick's Day 2014 Recovery Monday, sponsored by Powell CDC. Lila Stafford, my guest host, co-host, is in the house today. And Bob Montserrat, the cat in the hat, is not watching the chat. He's, I don't know if you know this, but Bob is a forensic scientist in real life, works for the state of Iowa. He's also one of the most sought-after expert witnesses in alcohol cases. And Bob is testifying someplace today on an alcohol-related case. So even though we miss him when he's gone, we know that his work is extremely important in that field. And obviously, Ryan is producing today, and so Ryan's watching the chat. Our special guest is Kevin Carroll. He's the Executive Director of Behavioral Health for Unity Point, which is the the parent company of Powell CDC. Mental health. It fascinates me. Little bit about my story. In 2004, I didn't start drinking until I was 34. And I grew up in a house where every night my mom and dad had a couple beers, and then they went to whiskey, ancient age. And that was a nightly event. And much like we were talking about off camera, everything we did had alcohol with it. Every family event. My mom and dad were big, let's go to the lake this weekend. And we were always on the lake. And there was always tons of booze that was around. And I don't know what it was about that, but I never started drinking. I mean, I tasted it. I snuck little drinks and stuff but I hated it. It was just no good. Mm-hmm. I remember once I tasted sloe gin. And I thought, well, I could drink this. And so I put some in my Dr. Pepper, and that wasn't any good. But I was 34, and I had something bad happen to me in my life that I caused. And so I turned to the bottle. And in 04, so 10 years later, 2 DUIs, and just sick and tired of what's going on, I went to a health professional, and I said, I want you to help me quit drinking. Because unfortunately, I had that horrible stereotype in my head of what a 12-step program was and who actually went to those. And those were drunks who lived under the bridge and drank out of paper bags, which, of course, is so not the case. Right. So I went to this doctor, and he analyzed me in the head and mentally and physically and all that, and came back about 4 sessions later and said, well, I'm going to diagnose you with borderline personality disorder. And he said, you can try to quit drinking now, and I'll help you, but you'll never quit. You'll never be able to quit until you go into remission for borderline personality disorder. And he then, unfortunately, told me that only 3% of the people who are ever diagnosed, which is like 17% of the cases of borderline, are ever diagnosed, and 3% of those ever go into remission. So I spent 5 years with him. And at the end of the 5th year, in December of 2009, he said, you've been in remission for a year. He said, I've watched you very carefully. He said, you got this figured out. Keep working the program, or keep doing the tools that I gave you. But he said, now you have no excuse to quit drinking. And it was May 10th of the next year that I finally got up enough of whatever it takes to put down the bottle. In how many cases... And you can just use me. I give you that story so I'm the example, not somebody else. But in how many cases are addictions, alcoholism, whatever you want to call it, driven by a mental imbalance, a measurable mental... I mean, we're all a little nuts. Okay, the world just makes us that way. But I'm talking about people like me who are functioning in society with a mental disorder or a mental disability that have yet to be diagnosed?
That's a great question, and congratulations on your sobriety and sharing your story with me. There's a whole program that's developed over time to address specifically what you're talking about, and sometimes it gets called co-occurring, sometimes dual diagnosis, but the concept is the same, that an individual has a mental health issue going on at the same time that they have a substance abuse issue going on. And honestly, it's real hard for a lot of people to tease out kind of a chicken and egg situation of which came first. Did I start drinking and then develop my anxiety? Or did I have some anxiety first and then realize, drinking, helped relieve some of that nervousness? So it's hard to say, on that side of the coin.
Well, but in my case, we know that the borderline was there. They figured it was someplace around age 6 to 7 or 8 years old when I acquired borderline. And for those of you listening who don't know what borderline is, and I'm not going to bore you to go into all of it, but basically, and you tell me if I get this right, this is the way I understand it. As a child, somewhere in the developmental years, so this is 6 to 14, 6 to 12, something dramatic happens. And it doesn't have to be an experience like a thunderbolt. It can be just circumstances that you live with. And we don't have the tools to handle it maturely. And so every time we're faced with that crisis, that emotional crisis in our life, we react like we did when we were 6 or 7 years old. I've been told that the most common cause of borderline is when a young girl is sexually abused over and over and over. And however that man wanted her to act is how she then acts in every relationship with a male as it goes forward. If the guy says, shut up and lay there, then you hold all your emotions in and you become just a basket case of resentments. If the guy instead wants you to act like, some girl in a red light district, then you are very promiscuous outwardly, et cetera, et cetera. Is that a good way to explain borderline to you?
Well, I was going to expand that a little bit and talk about trauma. Certainly, youth trauma, whether that's from as young as being 1 and 2 all the way into adulthood, has been clearly demonstrated to impact one's overall health, including mental health and physical health. There have been great studies done in multiple states, including Iowa, to show that kids and youth that experience trauma of varying degrees of severity years later have issues related to their physical health and their emotional health that they couldn't articulate, tying back to, some of the trauma of the past. But when you see the research, you can clearly tell that the more incidents of trauma or hardships that you've had, growing up, clearly corresponds or correlates to having compromised sort of health and mental health.
Yeah, you always have those scenes in movies or television shows when the therapist will say to the patient, "Tell me about the relationship you had with your mom and dad." And I used to laugh at that until I realized that's a vital question for most people suffering from mental disorders.
Yeah, and there's several traditions within psychiatry as a field, and a psychodynamic tradition of focusing on that kind of family of origin has been historically very important to the field and reflected a lot in the diagnosis that you're talking about. But there are other perspectives that are more recent, not necessarily better or worse, but focusing on behaviors or focusing on thoughts and less about some of those familial, relationships. The truth is that the diagnostic manual that we use in psychiatry, whether you're a doctor or a nurse or a therapist, is a document that has constantly been revised over time.
Yeah.
The most recent edition coming out last year, the DSM-5. And large parts of that are similar, but every time there's an edition, there's edits that to me say that we're trying to figure this out, but the science of mental health and addictions isn't the same level of science that we have in other areas of medicine about broken arms and bacteria. There's no biological test for any of these diagnoses currently, despite the fact that lots of smart people are trying to figure it out. We're just not there yet in 2014.
Yeah, I remember when I was diagnosed by my doctor with borderline, I kept waiting for him to tell me the prescription he was going to write. And I remember at some point sitting in his office and I said, well, there's something I can take for this because I'm a baby boomer and I think drugs will handle everything, right? And no, there's nothing. There's nothing you can take that works on borderline or many other disorders.
I have a question for you, Kevin, because what Mac's saying is that his doctor said, let's look at the mental health first before we address the alcohol. Is that generally what most people do? Because I'm thinking we get people in all the time that really need attention to both at the same time. But is there some theory that you deal with the mental health first?
I think the best practice would probably be to work on both as much as you can. Maybe one is slightly ahead of the other, but in helping an individual see that they're just really related, and one impacts the other. And if you're making improvements and gains in working on your depression, that's largely going to impact and improve your marijuana use, so to speak. And so if you can do that, other people tackle one, then tackle another. And it's kind of a, whatever works for you, whatever you're personally motivated to do. If you're willing to quit smoking dope and that's what you're focused on, great. Let's do that, get that licked, and then move on to the next sort of thing.
Yeah.
I remember my therapist telling me, I don't know, a couple years into it or whatever, that that I really liked drinking. And, of course, I had gone to him under the premise that I didn't like drinking. Well, what I didn't like was the identity that being a drinker made me think I had. Now, let me be careful about what I'm saying there. As a drinker, I thought very much less of myself. And I thought that the God of my understanding was a Old Testament God and a wrathful and an angry God. And like Adam and Eve in the garden, I wanted to hide from God because of my drinking. But I didn't have the skills or the tools to get rid of my resentments and understand my character defects as long as I was drinking.
Yeah, and besides our religious and family kind of messages and stories, I mean, there's just a very large and persuasive marketing campaign in our society about that exact same thing. I mean, you look at most of the alcohol commercials that'll be on during all the basketball tournaments, and you'll see a group of people together having fun, drinking.
Yep.
Very infrequently will ever be kind of an isolated individual drinking. It's a social, fun scene with music going, and that's part of the message that the sellers of those substances want you to know, that it's normal. Everybody's doing it. It's fun to do it. There's no downside.
I never thought of that. The commercials are never about a guy sitting in his basement drinking by himself.
No.
Where it usually ends up.
No, and they're always buff and good looking, and the girls want the guys. And now if you want to think about this, you can think about this question. But here's the question that I want to pose to you after your last comment. Wouldn't we be better off as a society to eliminate any alcohol or beer or anything like that commercials?
Oh, specifically commercials. With substances, I think we've learned a lot about alcohol and commercials through research of that medium, but also then with tobacco as well.
Yeah. We're going to come back and we're going to continue that conversation on how society and our culture really drives us to drink. I make that tongue in cheek, but in a way it's true. We're coming back live here on Recovery Monday, brought to you by Powell CDC on KTIA, Iowa.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I am administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
If we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going, though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
St. Patrick's Day 2014, and this is Recovery Monday. What a great conversation to have on St. Patrick's Day, because next to New Year's Eve, this is the day that more people have alcohol-related accidents, who are killed in alcohol-related deaths, and a simple fact is more people die from alcohol poisoning around St. Patrick's Day than any other day. But yet we seem to continue to flourish in this atmosphere and this culture of party all the time. Who did that song, Party All the Time? Was that Prince? Anyway.
Did you see the signs today coming in from West Des Moines?
Yes.
If you drink green beer, expect red lights in your back.
Yeah, I thought that was
rearview
great.
mirror.
And I just posted something on Facebook that said, if you go to a bar where everybody knows your name, you're probably an alcoholic. So Lila is, of course, my co-host from Powell CDC, and our guest today is Kevin Carroll, Executive Director of Behavioral Health at Powell CDC, and also with Unity Point. So we were beginning to talk a little bit about the culture and how it really encourages people to drink and to even use drugs. However, we have seen Hollywood. I'm just going to call them Hollywood. I'm not really blaming Hollywood. Well, then don't let me say Hollywood. We have seen the popular culture ban smoking. And even you see fewer and fewer people smoking on television. Now, you still see it in a movie from time to time. But I can't think of any. Can you think of any character on television that smokes? I can't think of one. So do you think eventually, Kevin, the thing that you already know, and Lila, you already know, and that's how dangerous and life-threatening alcohol and drug addiction can be, do you think there will be a day when we won't see skinny girls and buff boys drinking beer to give us the idea that's the best way to have fun?
Boy, in 2014, that's hard to imagine. It would be nice if there was a little bit more of an honest portrayal of the substance, both its positives and negatives, so to speak. But you're right, in smoking, we have seen nationwide and in Iowa, the incidence of people picking up the habit drop considerably the past 40 years, as well as just the number of adults who in Iowa say that they smoke on occasion, or even the, smoke when I drink kind of crowd.
Yeah.
That's really changed over time. And largely because the message has been employers have said you can't smoke here inside the building while you're working. Mm-hmm. Health insurance companies have continued to charge employees and organization high rates for those people that choose to still smoke, as well as just the economic impact of what a pack of cigarettes cost. All that plays a role in getting people to smoke less frequently.
All right, let's go to the phones where our good friend, The Voice, Frank, is standing by. Frank, you're live on Recovery Monday. What do you say?
Well, first off, my daughter's birthday is today, of all days, St. Patrick's Day. But
and as I saw on Facebook, she celebrated with alcohol.
That could possibly be very likely.
Oh, okay.
Isn't it strange that we're banning ads for cigarettes, but routinely on the news networks at night, you see stories about the marijuana smoking in Colorado, where they show a group of people just blowing smoke at the camera and celebrating pot smoking, but yet cigarette smoking is becoming more and more taboo.
Well, I don't know what it.
Well, my main point for calling is, I believe in treating addiction. You have to treat the whole body and the whole person, and I believe this includes diet.
Oh, me too.
Because in the Garden of Eden there was two perfect parents, and in the wilderness there was a perfect Messiah, and both were tempted with their first temptation in the wilderness and Eden on the point of appetite. Now, what they were being tempted with, the fruit and the bread, was not necessarily a perverse item, but it was the fact that they were rebelling against God's word. But Satan's key to any man. Notice they weren't tempted with a bottle of beer. They weren't tempted with a cigarette. They weren't tempted with alcohol. They weren't tempted with a joint. They were tempted on their appetite. So now the appetite affects the mind. When you affect the mind, then the morals are quickly to go. Then the body just follows along with the stomach and the mind. So if you want to trace this back, you have to trace it back to Satan goes at all men through their stomach. That's the entry point to every person's downfall. Once he perverts the appetite, the mind is next, then the body. So addictions don't come before the perverse appetite.
So and Frank, thanks for the call. So what I hear him saying is Michelle Obama is right in changing kids' school meals to something more healthy. And I say that cheek and tongue, but the truth of the matter is we really put a lot of crap into our bodies. And we don't know it because we're accustomed to it. I'm not on the new GMO or GNO, whatever that is, kick where, you shouldn't eat anything that's been genetically altered. But I know a lot of people in your field, the medical field, that would tell you that the reason the cancer is in such an upswing in every single part of our body is because ever since about 1940, 1950, we got off of regular homegrown food and started eating things that were packaged with a lifespan of 10 years. I think of ramen noodles. Have you ever seen the stuff on ramen noodles, how bad that is for you, how that stays in your system and creates, well, I don't want to tell you. Just don't eat ramen noodles.
My husband has a fruit cake right now that I gave him at Christmas that's still in this drawer, and I said, that is so nasty. It'll stay forever.
Yeah.
But God.
Yeah. Well, what was the thing that a guy did a few years ago? He stuck a Big Mac or something in a jar and then had a time-lapse photography on it, and it like in a year, it didn't change.
Ooh.
It just stayed the way it was.
On that thought, I know a lot of people with like alcohol addiction that also have food addictions.
Yeah.
And I think it's coming from the same place in your brain. But I agree with Frank in that I wish we would treat more the whole body. I mean, I think exercise is a huge part of feeling better emotionally and eating. In fact, I have people check into my groups all the time how they are emotionally, physically, and spiritually, so that they see the connection between those.
Yeah, you
those
do.
three
I like
things.
that. I like the way you do that in your groups.
Yeah.
And it's a large industry that has tried to, I'll say, sell to Americans and Iowans the idea of if you're not feeling well, here's a food product that will make you feel better. And so because the science is what it is today, and we don't know exactly all the details of how our brains and nutrition work, people buy lots of products hoping to feel better.
Oh, yeah.
And thinking that this supplement or that item or organic this or whatever is going to make them feel better. It might not.
I remember a TV show one time, and I don't remember when it was. It was a long time ago where probably Jack LaLanne or something like that. He took a bag of potato chips and put it in a blender, and then he poured a Diet Coke in. And then he pushed the button, and what came out was this ball of grease and fat. And he said, this is what's in your stomach after you eat a bag of potato chips and drink a Coke. And it was just like, oh, my God. And I can't eat a potato chip now without thinking about that. Back to the mental health issue for just a second before we go into our last break. Are there any significant signs that our listeners can look for in someone who perhaps is suffering from a mental disorder and they don't know it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great question. And honestly, I think it is family and friends and coworkers that can see people day in and day out and notice those subtle changes that maybe other people wouldn't notice. And so things that you might hear about directly or indirectly from a loved one could be a change of appetite, like we talked about, eating a lot more or a lot less. The same with sleep. Sleeping a lot more or a lot less than you're used to. And there are normal reasons to do it, but those kind of things impact us quite a bit.
Yeah, we're coming up on our last break. We're going to finish that conversation a little bit when we come back, because I think it's important for you and I to understand the signs of someone you love or care about or that you spend time with, and what those signs might be leading to and what they might be telling you. Kevin Carroll is our guest. He's the Executive Director of Behavioral Health with Powell CDC. Lila Stafford, my co-host, of course, Ryan producing, and I'm J. Michael McCoy. Thanks for listening. Love this job. Couldn't do it without you. Here at webcast1live.com.
A father who is headed toward another heart attack. A woman who struggles daily with diabetes and her memory. A boy whose headaches keep him out of school. A mother who one morning discovers a lump. A girl whose condition defies diagnosis. You come to us because you need answers, but you also need more. You need understanding of what you're going through. You need comfort. You need to be treated as an individual, not a condition. You need to be included in your own care. You are the point of everything we do. That's why we're changing to Unity Point Health. It's a model of care that will help us work better together, where the physician who knows you best takes the lead, coordinating your care through every step, from the hospital to specialists to rehabilitation to health services in the home and in the community, to making sure the treatments are effective. By working as a team, we surround you with care, helping you manage your health and your conditions, guiding you to making better choices and living a healthier life. The point of Unity is you. Unity Point Health.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
10 before the top, Salem Radio Network News at 4 o'clock, and then Pastor Michael Mudloff with True Blue. Kevin, I want to turn to you again. Kevin's the Executive Director of Behavioral Health. You were kind of in the middle of an explanation, and then we had to take a break. Go on and finish your statement.
Yeah, in addition to changes with eating or sleeping, depending on the age of the individual, certainly their behaviors should be something that could be noticed that might tip you off. And for a younger person, this might be, changes in attendance at school or who their friends are that they're hanging out with. For older adults, attendance at work, and kind of more largely just mood in general. As someone who, usually is quite pleasant and nice, turned kind of cranky and moody enough that you kind of wonder what's going on and offer some assistance or help.
Can food affect moods like alcohol or drugs?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you can tell not only from the ingredients, some foods are designed to do that. If you think of sort of energy bars or products, I mean, they're clearly marketed towards picking up your mood, picking up your energy, giving you a burst of calories and sugars to impact your body and mind.
And they're horrible for us.
Well, it's what happens after you peak. There's a crash.
Yeah. Now, Obamacare is going to change everything. And you had an interesting question earlier, Lila, about Obamacare.
I just wanted to know if Obamacare was going to make it mental health more available to people, because it just seems like now there's so many people that are afraid to be treated or can't be treated, or if they can't be admitted in the hospital unless they're suicidal. There's a lot of people being turned away that I believe need some help.
It's a great question, and I know politically it's a hot topic, the legislation in general between the two parties, but more practically, what has happened is that patients who are switching health insurances, so for example, here in our community, community members that have historically had Iowa Care as their plan for health insurance and switching to another provider, in terms of health insurance, one of the essential benefits, one of the 10 that were dictated by the federal government, were behavioral health coverage. And this is because historically, several insurance companies nationally would not cover mental health and not cover substance abuse. And patients didn't have the access that they should have like they do on the medical side.
Mm-hmm.
And so legislation now has essentially, along with some parity legislation, it's called, made those obstacles much smaller than they ever have been in getting care, or at least being able to have your insurance company pay for that care once you get it.
All right, so when somebody comes out with some nut, comes out and takes a gun and kills a bunch of people, and the blogs and everybody starts talking about we need mental health care in this country, Obamacare is actually giving us that.
Yeah, it's a great question on that. Certainly the past few years, there just seems like a rise in that, or a rise in the coverage of those incidents in the United States. And one of the questions is, on a state-by-state basis and also nationally, what are we doing? What kind of coverage do we have for both outpatient services as well as emergency and hospital-based services?
And will Obamacare help us with those issues? Give us a little bit more? You don't know.
It's remains to be seen. On the inpatient side, you need hospitals that are willing to have psychiatric facilities and specialists work there. I'm proud to work at Unity Point Health, and they have it as a mission, as part of their mission, not only here, but in Wisconsin and Illinois, to do that kind of work and that service for our community. It's not every hospital and hospital system that wants to do that, and also that has the workforce. If you think of some rural Iowa communities and in the nation, they all don't have psychiatrists and psych nurse practitioners in their community to be able to provide that specialized care.
Kevin Carroll has been our guest today. He's the executive director of behavioral sciences at Powell CDC. One of the things we didn't get into, and I want to get into, we've got about 3 minutes left, is about age. And how you're seeing the age of people being treated kind of change. How is that happening?
Well, Powell has just launched a adolescent treatment program, again, here in our community to respond to the growing needs of young adults and teens that need this service on the substance abuse side. But even broader on the older adult side, we serve many older adults in our community that face much different issues. Yes, substance abuse issues at home, but also psychiatric issues. And it's typically adults in their 40s and 50s that start seeing the decline of their parents in terms of dementia or Alzheimer's, or being very isolative or having kind of distorted thinking. And those are kind of issues that are new for people. They're not quite sure what to do with them. And just want to say that we proudly care for those patients as well.
The health industry is really, at least within Unity Point, is really putting their arms around addictions and mental health issues. And I want to thank you, because there isn't enough, and I don't want you to talk ill about your competitors. I know you wouldn't do that, but it does amaze me that when we're in this culture of healthcare being so prevalent, mainly because of old people like me, the baby boomers, who are now, we're requiring more health care, and we want to live longer, and we don't mind exercising. I mean, my grandmother, who died at 77 years old, used to play basketball, and I thought that was just something incredible. Well, now people 77 years old walk 3 and 4 miles a day, and they go to the gyms and everything. I just want to thank you and your team at Unity Point for putting your arms around and surrounding those people who suffer from not only addictions from alcohol and drugs, prescription drugs specifically, because that's a new problem that's coming up, but also the mental health issues.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, and I appreciate all that you do for the community in your positions that you have.
Yeah, Lila's great. I don't want to embarrass you, Lila, but you're a hero to a lot of women out there. A lot of women, to use your words, look at you and say, I want what she has. And you come alongside those people with humility and grace and yet honesty. And I don't know how many people's lives and families you've changed. Both of you have changed, but thank you so very much for being so bold and for being a part of a program like this, which really opens the veil and says, listen, we're going to talk about this. And we're not going to be shy about talking about it. And let's be bold and step out. We have somebody sitting in your chair every week, Kevin, that's bold enough to say, you know, I don't care if I'm embarrassed. I don't care who sees this. I need to share my story because somebody out there needs to hear what my life was like, what happened, and what my life is like now. And I appreciate both of you for doing that.
Thank you very much.
Lila, I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Well, I'll see you before that, but we'll see you on the show on Monday. And Bob Montserrat will be back. I'm J. Michael McCoy. If I haven't told you lately, thanks for listening. I love this job, and I couldn't do it without you. This is Recovery Monday, produced by Ryan Northfield, co-hosted by Lila Stafford, and of course, made possible by the good folks down at Powell CDC. So until I see you again, do me a favor, would you? This St. Patrick's Day, think of somebody you don't like. Think of somebody that you really carry a resentment for. Think of that person that you just can't stand and forgive them, because it's your mental health that will be improved.